Hello there, everyone. Salamun alaikum. Everyone wants to go to heaven, what we call Jannat. Everybody wants to be spared the punishment of hell. But how many of us really want to change? How many of us are prepared to question, to ask the difficult questions, to be rewarded, to find that good abode in the life hereafter? You see, most people are born into a particular social structure. In other words, they are born with a set of values, with beliefs. The Hindu man or woman is born in a Hindu value system. The American or the European is born in a Western value system. And so also the Muslim is born into a value system. Each of us sitting within our own social structure and value system, we truly believe that what we were given at birth, what we adopted from our parents, is in fact the best possible way that we could live our lives. And there are probably very few, a minority of the world, really a minority, a small minority that will examine the beliefs and the values that they have been handed down by their parents. And in a critical way, look at the way they live, the things they assume, their dealings with others, the way they treat themselves, the way they run their homes. They will probably be very uncritical about all those decisions that they base, or all the decisions that they base on the value system. So, for example, in a Muslim home, you will rarely find alcohol or the consumption of alcohol, because it is a part of a greater value system that values sobriety, that values control, that values or that does not value sort of acting in a way that is shameful or ridiculous. And so the value systems come together, or the values that we adopt shape our beliefs, our practices, the way we run our lives, our homes, and even our countries. Now, the position that I am presenting to you, my dear fellow friends and viewers here, is that the value system that is chosen, that is most acceptable in the eyes of God Almighty, the value system, the belief system, the deen, we call it the deen, that is most cherished and desirable in the eyes of God, is that value system and deen which He offered humanity in the form of His scriptures. The Qur'an is a book, or all Holy Scriptures in the original form are books replete with values, with principles, with sound understandings and arguments. And so these books, these scriptures, whether it is the Bible in its original form, whether it is the Qur'an, they are coherent books that offer to humanity a comprehensive set of positive values and understandings that will maximize our prosperity, our level of flourishing in this world. And in addition, as a bonus, will offer us an extended life in the hereafter. After we cease to exist in our material form, we then continue to exist in the spiritual form, in the new form, where we then hope, in terms of us having subscribed or complied with that value system, that we then have the hope of entering an eternal life that is a life of bliss and a life of happiness and satisfaction and comfort. So that is the question. The Muslim today truly believes that what he believes in, the set of values that they've adopted, are indeed the values that are expressed in the Qur'an. Now, who must be the judge of that? You see, the other day, I was in a hurry and I had some fish that I cleaned, and I was we had to go. I had to go somewhere for a few days, and I had this fish, and I had all the insides, and I just didn't know what to do with it. I couldn't put it in the bin because it would smell. It will stink up the bin. And so what I did was I took the rejected parts of the fish, the gills and the gall and whatever that can't be consumed, and I just stuck it all into a bag and I shoved it into the deep freezer. And when I came back a few days later, I had to take this pack of edible and inedible fish out, and had to take my time to unfreeze it. And then after unfreezing it, I had to separate the edible parts of the fish from the inedible parts. You see, what we today have is an Islam that is that bag of mixed fish mixed with inedible parts. About 1,000 years ago, when the Muslim world was devastated by civil wars, when the Arab world was annihilated by the Mongols, or the Mongols, by the sons of Genghis Khan, when the Seljuk Turks mopped up whatever was left of the kings, the Arab kings, when the Europeans came also later and destroyed what was left, when the Kaaba was bombed after the Caliph Abdul Malik, attacked it with heavy boulders and flattened it to the ground. After the Karamita, the Karmatians as they call them, they grabbed the black stone out of the Kaaba and stole it and ran away for a number of years to the deep wilderness in Arabia. When the Kaaba was burnt to the ground, when Medina was destroyed, these are all the traumas that the Muslim world experienced. After all of that trauma, and after the contemporary trauma of the desert Arabs ruling Islam and bringing their literal Salafist beliefs and imposing it on the whole Muslim world, who hated them, who hated the Salafists until they became powerful and rich with oil wealth. All of this happened in the past, well, recently some of the things, but very early on, those Karamita who stole the black rock, the black stone, those Abdul Malik who demolished the Kaaba, the army of Yazid in 65 who came and burnt down Medina. All of this trauma created a Muslim society that was in shambles. It was in shambles. There were a few characters like Ibn Hanbal, Shafi'i, Hanafi, Bukhari. A few characters tried to pick up the pieces and, as best as possible, patch together a religious code, a religious orthodoxy, which they thought would be Islam, would be Islam. They picked up the pieces, and the kings who ruled, to solidify their rulership, they accepted the patchwork that was called Islam. A patchwork that ignored at times what the Qur'an said and incorporated much of what was prevalent in Christian beliefs and in Jewish beliefs and even in the Zoroastrian beliefs. And all of that together was frozen in a package called Islam. That is, my dear friends, my brothers and sisters, that is exactly what has happened. And the only way you can come to this conclusion is if you are prepared to ask the very, very difficult questions. If you are prepared to say, what if? What if? What if? Now, how did I come to this position? You see, the only way you can figure this out, and I'm not the only one, by the way, but the only way you can figure out that Islam is frozen with all the negative and inedible and unusable beliefs into one package. In other words, the hadiths and the fiqh ideas and the inventions of scholars. The only way you can know that we have a frozen bag of fish mixed with junk also in it. The only way we know that is by going to the original text, by going to the text that started it all, the original text. You see, the book, the authentic original scripture is what will tell us if we are right or wrong. You know, it's like when you're working for a company and or for a business, and you know there are so many voices and so many people are telling you what to do, and the bosses are arguing with each other. What you do is you go to the core mission of the company. You go back to the foundational principles of the company. When the people argue, you go to the original text and you say, what is our business? What are we supposed to be doing? What is our job here? Let's go back to the original job description. And that original job description, that original policy document, that original guidelines is what I present to you is the Qur'an. Now, if you go to the Qur'an word for word, if you start from chapter 1, Surah Fatiha, verse 1, and you read it all the way, there's 114 surahs, and you read it all the way to the end, Min al-Jinnati wan-Nas, to the last few words there. It will, in those 6,300 verses, it will take you roughly, maybe if you recite it carefully and you never stop every day for 8 hours, it will take you probably not more than a week to go through all of those lines, right? If you read it carefully. What you will then discover is all the junk, all the inedible stuff will show itself up. All the inedible, all the unusable junk will show itself up. Yes, you're going to say, yeah, but Anwar, the hadiths, and there's a lot of positive things in the hadiths. Yes, there's 500,000 hadiths. Some of them say you must breastfeed, a woman must breastfeed a grown, strange man. Some of them say that goat ate the verses under the bed. Some of them say the Prophet used to sleep with all his wives in one night. Some of them say, yes, those are hadiths. Those are genuinely hadiths. Some of them say, some of them say that the very people who narrated the hadiths were liars and thieves. One narrator, Umar, the Caliph Umar, gave another great narrator, Abu Huraira, one hell of a slap one day and took all his money and told him, you thief and you liar. So that is the hadith. When you're busy trying to find Islam in the hadith, you're going to have to, it's like going into a sewage tank, my friends, and trying to find a few pieces of gold. Yes, you might find it. I know there's people in India who dig down into the sewage to get gold out. But that is not the way that God would give us our beautiful, pristine religion. You wouldn't bury our religion in a sewage tank, my friend, in a sewage hole. you would not be required to dig through countless lies and nonsense to find the truth. There is a crystal clear tank with pure water, and that is the Qur'an, my friends. And that tank you can consume, you can drink, you can live, and not be worried that you will drink poison. Well, these hadith sewage swamps, you never know what is right and what is wrong unless you have 1,000 or 1,000,000 priests, priests, and there's no priesthood in Islam, but men who you will depend on. No. In the Quran, you become the driver. In the hadith world, they are the driver. You see, with the Quran being your guide and your basis on which you decide your criterion, you are in the driver's seat. And remember, accountability for your behavior is not collective. In our religion, the book tells us that accountability is individualized. It is not collectivized. So you cannot argue that Sheikh bin Baz or Sheikh Qardawi or Sheikh Nouman Ali Khan or Sheikh, whatever his name is, has told me to believe like this, and so I can't go to hell because I just followed them. No, that's not how it works. You will be sent to hell along with your Sheikh Mufti Menk or your Sheikh whatever you followed, because they are not taking you to the Quran, my friends. They are taking you to the sewage tank, which is the 500,000 hadiths. The core basis, the core principle of being a hadith believer. And I'm also saying to you that yes, there are nuggets in hadith, but it is not a prerequisite for you to be a good Muslim. You see, there are nuggets of goodness in hadith. Like I said, you can go and dive in there and extract a piece of gold nugget or whatever. Yes, it's possible. Right? It's possible. You can even analyze it and put together history and a story of what happened in the past. Yes, it's good for that. And there are some wisdoms in there. Yes, I'm not saying, even there's benefit even in sewage water. If you throw it on the garden, it will grow the lawn. The lawn will become very green. So I'm not saying sewage water there's nothing in it, but I'm saying you cannot turn it into your sustenance, your spiritual and your religious sustenance. That you have to seek in the Holy Quran. Now, my friends, I come to the last point of this video. The Quran itself requires two things. And this is where many Quranites or Quranists or Ahlul Quran, whatever they call themselves, because those terms are not even in the Quran. The problem is that the Quran is not an agent. The Quran is merely an inscription. It is a template. It is it's like a ruler, it's a ruler. You have to measure and you have to use it to do right. If a fitter, a carpenter doesn't use a ruler, he is unable to build anything. So the Quran is like that. It's a criterion. It's a benchmark. Now, a benchmark itself is nothing. You can have a Quran, it can sit there and it will not change the world. And if you yourself also read it every day, it will not change the world. The way the Quran changes the world. Now, we're moving on, right? I hope I've convinced you that book, that Quran, is the only book you need to sort yourself out, to make right with your Lord, with your God. But having that Quran is not enough, and that is why a lot of Quranists, Ahlul Quran, Quranites, whatever they call them, are still in a mess, and why they're still running around like headless chickens. Why do they run around like headless chickens? And I've even had some people on my, social media contact me and say, Anwar, listen, I'm sick and tired of this Qur'an story because everyone is saying a different thing. And I'm tired because I don't know what is the right way. And I don't know Arabic, and so please, what the hell must I do? Now here's my voice, here's my advice to you. You see, the weakness, the shortcoming that those who talk Qur'an, the weakness, the shortcoming they have is that they are not applying the Qur'an. You see, there are I'm just going to mention two important aspects of the Quranic society, or the society that is based on the will of the creator of the universe. There's two aspects. The one is the community. The community, there has to be a sense of community. You see, the Quran is not a recipe for individual transformation only. The Quran is a recipe for social transformation, more so than it is a recipe for individual transformation. I've just made a quick survey of the amount of times that the word town appears in the Quran. And it appears something like 22 times. Look at this here. Why was there not a single township amongst those we warned which believed, so its faith could have profited from it? God addresses the towns. Ask at the town where we have been, and the caravan. Such being, let's just go to the... Now, let's just quickly look at one that's short. Then they proceeded until they came to the inhabitants of a town. They asked them for food. As for the wall, it belonged to 2 youths orphans in the town. You see, the word town is used over and over, but never mind the word town, the word people. We sent Noah to his people. He said, "Oh, my people worship Allah. You have no..." Right? The leaders of his people said, speaking now to the elite, he said, "Oh, my people, no wandering is there in my mind." 537 times I see the word people here. Do you wonder that they come to your message from your Lord through a man and your own people to warn you? Warn in the plural. They were indeed a blind people. My point here is that you don't have Islam without the people, my friends. 500 and something times the Quran addresses the messengers coming to the people, speaking to the people, convincing the people, addressing the people. There is no Islam without the people. And you come here and you believe, you tell me, like I saw somebody the other day, no, Islam, Quran is just a recipe for personal virtue and being a good person and not doing evil. My friends, if you believe that, then you have not read the Quran. The Quran speaks specifically about man lam yahkum bima anzalallah. You have to establish governance. You have to establish leadership. You have to establish structure. And by the way, the word salah. How can you have salah without others? How can you have connectedness? How can you have observance? How can you have alignment without being aligned to somebody or to people? So the people mobilizing, galvanizing, organizing, structuring, building communities is one crucial, critical element of Islam. So this Quran cannot work without creating a community, creating a social structure. Then there are still those who run around and believe that, we are just us, we just the people that must follow the word of Allah. No. We have a job to challenge the corridors of power in the world today. We have the job to challenge those who run around corrupting the earth, those in NATO, those in the EU, those wherever they are, spreading war, spreading hunger, spreading poverty, spreading injustice. The Zionists globally. A core essential aspect of us being people of the Quran is us correcting the behavior and the governance and the structure of society. There is no Islam without that. Now, the last thing that I want to say that we also do not pay heed to, because that's the first thing that Quranists do, is they come and say like it's an academic thing, the Quran. We need to ask, what is you need to decide, what is fasting? Is it is the earth flat? You actually have subverted the Quran, my friend, by turning it into some sort of academic titillatory exercise that you sit and you try and argue out interesting little questions about the Quran. No, my friends, try and see the woods and not the trees. You see, the bigger picture is that Islam is the Quran is a social transformatory intervention. Now, the last thing that I want to mention is the aspect of leadership. Why are you confused? Why are you saying that the one is saying this and the one is saying that? That's because you have not acquired, you have not adopted the idea of wilayat, my friends. Now, the Quran, that's a word in the Quran, by the way. It says, Innama waliyukumullah, though your wali is Allah, His Prophet, and the believers. You need, and then I'm going to show you a verse now. You see, the prophetic messengers, the messengers who were also recipients of divine communication, they passed on. The recipients of divine communication, like the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, was also a messenger. Let's look at the verse here where God speaks to him. Chapter 7, verse 157. This is the translation of Yusuf Ali. Those who follow the messenger, the unlettered prophet, and I don't agree with that word unlettered, but let's go with that, whom they find mentioned in their own scriptures, in the law and the gospel. For he, now comes the crucial part, for he, the messenger, commands them what is just and forbids them what is evil. He allows them as lawful what is good and pure, and prohibits them from what is bad and impure. He releases them from the heavy burdens and from the yokes that are upon them. So it is those who believe in him, honor him, help him, and follow the light which he is sent down with. It is they who will prosper. Now this, my friend, is a verse that I want to use to bring home to you the importance of a messenger. Now I will refer to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam as a messenger prophet, a messenger with a divine, was divinely communicated to by God. In other words, a messenger with wahi. But you do get a messenger with a small m. So this is messenger with a capital M, right? But I'm going to talk to you about the messenger with a small m. You see, as long as humanity exists, there will be a need to deliver the message to them. There will be required a message carrier with a small m. You and I, my friends, those of you who are there who have discovered the truth and who have seen the light, you are the messengers. You are the carriers of the message. And I'm not saying the Rasul of Allah. No, you are the Rasul of the message. You have the duty to convey. You have the duty to convey. The Risala is still there. The message is still there, but the message still needs somebody to convey it. Now what this verse is saying here that I've just looked at is, this verse is saying that when you adopt the mission of the great messenger, the messenger prophets, you need to take on the qualities of truth, the qualities of courage, the qualities of being just, the qualities of being a solver of people's problems. And that, my friends, is the other important aspect. So we need the book. We have that. That is the template. That is the benchmark. We need the people. That is the vehicle. That is how we will transform society. And thirdly, we need the class of leaders that will be people of morality, of example, of social leadership, social direction, who will give direction, who will bring solutions, who will act courageously, who will speak the truth, who will be in the vanguard of the rest of people. Those are the leaders, my friends. And so we cannot have Islam without those core elements. You cannot build a society, you cannot reconstruct the order that God commands of you without the people and without a cadre of leadership who will excel in implementing and exemplifying the Qur'an. My friends, that's my message for you today. I hope you will take up your role as a leader, as a person who will guide, that you will become an example, an exemplar of the Qur'an. And you can only be that if you know the Qur'an, if you've studied it. And that is why Allah says in the Qur'an, you should read the Qur'an morning and evening by yourself. You should. And that is how you will come to know your duty, your responsibility. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.